Chapter 16. Pool Boy. There was a Scythe at the door of the executive mansion, actually a quartet of them, although the other three stood back, allowing the one in the royal blue to be the point man. The executive was frightened, terrified actually, but he hadn't risen to this level of success by wearing his emotions on his sleeve. He had a keen mind and a consummate poker face. He would not be intimidated by death on his doorstep, even when death's robes was studded with diamonds. "I'm surprised you got to the front door without my gate guards alerting me," the executive said, as nonchalant as could be. "They would have alerted you, but we gleaned them," one of the other Scythes said, a woman in green with Pan-Asian leanings. The executive would not allow this news to daunt him. "Ah, so you need me to give you their personal information in order for you to alert their families?" "Not exactly," the lead Scythe said. "May we come in?" Since the executive knew he didn't have the right to refuse, he stepped aside. The diamond-studded Scythe and his rainbow of subordinates followed, looking around at the understated opulence of the mansion. "I am Honorable Scythe Goddard. These are my junior associates, Scythe Volta, Chomsky, and Rand." "Sharp robes," commented the executive, still successfully capping his fear. "Thank you," the Scythe Goddard said. "I can see you are a man of taste. My compliments to your decorator. "That would be my wife," he said, an inwardly grimaced to have brought her in any way to the attention of life-takers. Scythe Volta, the one in yellow, with an Afric look about him, strolled around the grand foyer, peering through the archways that led to other areas of the mansion. "Excellent feng shui," he said. "Energy flow is very important in a home so large." "I imagine there's a good-sized pool," said the one in the flame-colored robe embedded with rubies. Scythe Chomsky. He was blond, pale, and brutish. The executive wondered if they were enjoying prolonging this encounter. The more he played along, the more power they had, so he cut through the small talk before they could see him crack. "May I ask your business here?" Scythe Goddard glanced at him but ignored the question. He gestured to his subordinates, and two of the three left. The one in yellow took the winding stairs. The woman in green went to explore the rest of the first floor. The pale one in orange stayed nearby. He was the largest of them, and perhaps a bodyguard for their leader, as if anyone would actually be stupid enough to strike a Scythe. The executive wondered where his children were at the moment. Out back with Nanny, upstairs? He wasn't sure. And the last thing he wanted was to have the Scythe in the house out of his sight. "Wait," he said. "Whatever your purpose, I'm sure we could reach some sort of arrangement. You do know who I am, don't you?" Scythe Goddard took in a piece of artwork on display in the foyer. Instead of looking at him, someone wealthy enough to own a Cézanne. I don't know how to say that. Ugly art is still ugly art. No. No. "Please," the executive said. "I'm Maxim Easley. Surely the name means something to you?" The Scythe looked at him without a hint of recognition. It was a flame-clad one who reacted. "The guy who runs Regenesis." Finally, there came recognition from Goddard. "Oh, right. Your company is number 2 in the turn corner industry." Soon to be number one, easily reflexively bragged. Once we release our technology, it allows cellular regression beyond the 25th year. I have friends who've used your services. I myself have yet to turn a corner. You could be the first to officially use our new process. Goddard laughed and turned to associate. Could you imagine me as a teenager? Not a chance. It's probably a scary one. Probably the kind I would shoot up at school. Kind of crazy. High five. Next. Boops. Boops. Boop. Boop, 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 boop. Oh. The more amused they were, the more horrified easily became. No sense in hiding his desperation anymore. There must be something you want, something of value I can offer you. And finally Goddard laid his cards on the table. I want your arrest date. Easily resisted the urge to excuse me, but the statement was not ambiguous in any way. It was an audacious demand, but Maxim Easley was nothing if not a negotiator. I have a garage with more than a dozen model-age motor vehicles. Priceless, every last one of them. You can have any of them. You can have them all. The Scythe stepped closer and easily suddenly found a blade pressed to his neck, to the right of his Adam's apple. He never saw the Scythe draw it. So quick was he that it seemed to disappear out his jugular. Let's clarify, Goddard said calmly. We are not here to barter and bargain. We are Scythes, which means that by law anything we want we can take. Any life we wish to end, we will. Simple as that. You have no power here. Do I make myself clear? Easily nodded, feeling the blade almost but not quite cut his skin as he did. Satisfied, Goddard removed the blade from his neck. An estate like this must require sizable staff, housekeepers, gardeners, perhaps even a stable personnel. How many do you employ? Easily tried to speak, but nothing came out. He cleared his throat and tried again. 12, he said. 12 full-time employees. Then the woman in green, Scythe Rand, emerged from the kitchen, bringing with her a man Easley's wife had recently hired. He was in his early 20s, or appeared so. Easley couldn't remember his name. And who was this? Goddard asked. The pool boy. Pool boy, mimicked Scythe Rand. Goddard nodded to the muscle-bound Scythe in orange, who then approached the young man, reached up, and touched his cheek. The pool boy collapsed to the ground, his head hitting the marble. His eyes stayed open, but no life remained in them. He had been gleaned. "It works," said Scythe Chomsky, looking at his hand. "Definitely what the weapons master paid." "Now then," said Goddard, "while we are within our rights to take anything we choose, I am a fair man. In exchange for this lovely estate, I will offer you, your family, and your surviving staff full immunity for every year that we choose to remain here." Easley's relief was intense and immediate. How odd, he thought, to have his home stolen and yet feel relieved. "On your knees," Goddard said, and Easley obeyed. "Kiss it." Easley did not hesitate. He planted his lips on the ring, pressing hard, feeling the edge of the setting catch on his lips. "Now you will go to your office and resign your position, effective immediately." This time Easley did say, "Excuse me. Someone else can do your job. I'm sure there are others itching for the opportunity." Easley rose, his legs still a bit shaky. But why? Can't you just let me and my family leave? We won't bother you. We'll take nothing but the clothes on our backs. You'll never see us again." "But alas, I can't let you leave," said Scythe Goddard. "I need a new pool boy." "I think it's wise that Scythes may not glean one another. It was clearly implemented to prevent Byzantine grabs at power. But where the power is concerned, there are always those who find a way to grasp for it. I think it's also wise that we are allowed to glean ourselves. I'll admit there were times when I considered it, when the weight of responsibility felt so heavy, leaving the yoke of the world behind seemed a better alternative. But one thought always stayed in my hand from committing that final act. If not me, who? Will the Scythe who replaces me be as compassionate and fair? I can accept a world without me in it, but I can't bear the thought of other Scythes gleaning in my absence. From the Gleaning Journals of H.S. Curie. Chapter 17. The Seventh Commandment. Citra and Rowan were awakened sometime after midnight by someone pounding on the front door. They left their rooms, meeting in the hallway, and both reflexively glanced towards Scythe Faraday's closed door. Citra turned the knob, finding it unlocked, and pushed it open, just enough to see that the Scythe wasn't there. His bed had not yet been slept in tonight. It was unusual, but not unheard of, for him to stay out this late. They had no idea what his occasional late nights were about, and they didn't want to ask. Curiosity was one of the first casualties of apprenticeship. They had long since learned there were many things they'd rather not know in the life of a scythe. The relentless pounding continued, not the rapping of knuckles, but the full-fisted heel of a hand. "So," said Rowan, "he forgot his keys, so?" It was the most sensible explanation, and didn't the most sensible explanation tend to be correct? They approached the door, steeling themselves for admonishment. "How could you not hear me knocking?" he chided. "Last I heard, no one's been deaf for 200 years. But when they opened the door, they were not faced with Scythe Faraday, but with a pair of officers. Not common peace officers, but member of the Blade Guard, the sign of Scythedom clearly emblazoned on the breasts of their uniforms. "Citra Terranova and Rowan Damish?" one of the guard's men asked. "Yes," answered Rowan. He stepped slightly forward, putting his shoulder in front of Citra in a short, protective stance. He felt it gallant, but Citra found it irritating. "You'll need to come with us." "Why?" asked Rowan. "What's going on?" "It's not our place to say," the second guardsman told them. Citra pushed Rowan's protective shoulder to the side. "We're Scythe's apprentices," she said, "which means the Blade Guard serves us and not the other way around. You have no right to take us against our will." "It'll play on its own."
What?
"It'll play on its own, Finley. Go watch it. Go play." "Now." Good Lord. "You have no right to take us against our will," which was probably untrue, but it gave the guards pause, and then came a voice from the shadows. "I'll handle this." Out of the darkness swelled a familiar figure, wholly out of place in Faraday's neighborhood. The high blade's gilded robe did not shine in the dimness of the doorstep. It seemed dull, almost brown. "Please, you must come with me immediately. Someone will be sent for your things." As Rowan was in pajamas and Citra a bathrobe, neither was too keen to obey, but they both sensed that their night clothes were the least of their concerns. "Where's Scythe Faraday?" Rowan asked. The high blade took a deep breath in and sighed. "He invoked the seventh commandment," Xenocrates said. "Scythe Faraday has gleaned himself." High Blade Xenocrates was a bloated bundle of contradictions. He wore a robe of rich baroque brocades, yet on his feet were frayed, tread-worn slippers. He lived in a simple log cabin, yet the cabin had been reassembled on the rooftop of a Fulcrum City's tallest building. His furniture was mismatched and thrift store shabby, yet on the floor beneath them were museum-quality tapestries that could have been priceless. "I can't tell you how sorry I am," he told Rowan and Citra, who were still too shell-shocked to wrap their minds around what had happened. It was morning now. The three of them having ridden in the private hypertrain to Fulcrum City, and they were now out on a small wooden deck that overlooked a well-tended lawn that ended in a sheer ledge and a 70-story drop. The high blade did not want anything to obstruct his view, and anyone stupid enough to trip over the edge would deserve the time and cost of revival. "It's always a terrible thing when their Scythe leaves us," the high blade lamented, "especially one as well respected as Scythe Faraday. Xenocrates has a full retinue of assistants and flunkies in the outside world to help him go about his business, but here in his home he didn't have as much as a single servant. Yet another contradiction. He had brewed them tea and now poured it for them, offering cream but no sugar. What's the point? What's the point? Like, that adds no flavor to tea. Cream. No, it just makes it lighter. Right. Rowan sipped his, but Scythe refused the slightest kindness from the man. He was a fine Scythe and a good friend, Xenocrates said. He will be sorely missed. It was impossible to guess at Xenocrates' sincerity. Like everything else about him, his words seemed both sincere and not at the same time. He had told him the details of Scythe Faraday's demise on the way here. At about 10:15 the evening before, Faraday was on a local train platform. All would be relieved that the Scythe had cleaned himself, and not any of them. Had it been anyone but a Scythe, his broken body would have been rushed to the nearest revival center, but rules for Scythes were very clear. There would be no revival. But it doesn't make sense, Scythe said, fighting tears with little success. He wasn't the kind of man who would do something like that. He took his responsibility as a Scythe and training us very seriously. I can't believe he would just give up like that. Rowan held his silence on the subject, waiting for the High Blade's response. Actually, Xenocrates says, it makes perfect sense. He took an excruciatingly long sip of tea before he spoke again. Traditionally, when a mentor Scythe self-gleans, anyone bound to an apprenticeship is unbound. Scythe gasped, realizing the implication. He did it, says Xenocrates, to spare one of you from having to clean the other. Which means, said Rowan, this is your fault. And then he added with a little bit of derision, Your Excellency. No, Finn, go play in your room. You can put them on. I don't care. Go put them on. That's a shirt. That is a shirt. Come here. Come here. Come here. Just put your arm through. There you go. Xenocrates stiffened. If you are referring to the decision to set the two of you in a mortal competition, that was not my suggestion. I was merely carrying out the will of the Scythedom, and frankly, I find your insinuation offensive. Finley, those don't fit you right. Yep, there you go. Do you need help?
No, I got it. See a cat.
Oh, come here, and I'll help you. Come here. There you go. I was merely carrying out the will of the Scythedom, and frankly, I find your insinuation offensive. We never heard of the will of the Scythedom, Rowan reminded him, because there was never a vote. Xenocrates stood, ending the conversation with, I'm sorry for your loss. It was more than just Rowan and Citra's loss, though. It was loss to the entire Scythedom, and Xenocrates knew it, whether he said so or not. So, that's it then, said Citra. We go home now? Not exactly, said Xenocrates. this time not looking either of them in the eye. While it's traditional for the apprentices of the dead Scythe to go free, another Scythe can come forward and take over the training. It's rare, but it does happen. You? Citra asked. You volunteer to train us now? No, it's not him, Rowan said. It's someone else. My responsibility as High Blade would make it far too difficult to take on apprentices. You should be flattered, however. Not just one, but 2 Scythes have come forward. 1 for each of you. Citra shook her head. No. We were pledged to Scythe Faraday and no one else. He died to free us, so we should be freed. I'm afraid I've already given my blessing, so the matter is settled. Then he turned to each of them in turn. You, Citra, and I'll be the apprentice of Honorable Scythe Curie. Rowan closed his eyes. He knew what was coming next. Even before Xenocrates said the words, and you, Rowan, will complete your training in the capable hands of Honorable Scythe Goddard. Part 3. The Old Guard and the New Order. I have never taken an apprentice. I simply never felt compelled to subject another human being in our way of life. I often wonder what motivates other Scythes to do so. And be all because for others, perhaps it is compensation for not being allowed to have children. Be my son or my daughter for a year, and I will give you power over life and death. Yet for others, I imagine it to prepare for their own self-gleaning. Be the new me, so that the old me can leave the world satisfied. I suspect, however, if I ever take on an apprentice, it will be for a different reason entirely. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 18. Falling Water. At the far eastern edge of Mid-America, near the East America border, was a home with a river running beneath it, spilling from its foundations into a waterfall. It was designed by a very well-known Mortal Age architect, Scythe Curie told Citra as she led the way across the footbridge to the front door. The place has fallen into disrepair, as you can imagine. A home such as this couldn't survive without constant attention. It was in a horrible state, and no one cared enough to preserve it. Only the presence of a scythe would bring forth the kind of donations required to save it. Now it's been returned to its former glory. The scythe opened the door and let Citra step in first. "Welcome to Falling Water," Scythe Curie said. I know, but I love one. Never listening.